Hey guys, I'm going to help you out with the homework just a little bit. I'm going to help you with examples 3 and 4, and that should give you an idea of how to tackle some of these other ones. So we're simplifying these expressions, and remember that you can combine two fractions like this as long as they have a common denominator, and in this case, they do. So I could rewrite this as x cubed minus 9x divided by x plus 3. All right, so that's our first step. Then we talked about in class that we should factor things like this as much as we can. Now this can't be factored because we just have two terms. They don't share any commonalities, can't do anything about that. But here, these each have an x. So I want to factor this using the GCF method, which is something that we did on Thursday. X cubed and negative 9x each have an x. So I could pull an x out of there and I would be left with x squared minus 9. So remember in class we did that. I would have said something like factor, and you would have found the GCF to be x. And then we had to divide each of these by x, and then you'd be left with x squared minus 9. So that's where this comes from. All right, so now we have x times x squared minus 9 equals x plus 3. Well, we still can't do anything, and that's because this can be factored again. So we can double bubble that so that we have x times x minus 3 times x plus 3 all over x plus 3. So all I did here was I looked for things that add to 0 because we're missing an x term and multiply to negative 9. Now I double bubbled and I've taken this cubic and broken it down into its three factors. The reason I did that is because now it's very easy to see that there is a cancellation that you can make. X plus 3 divided by x plus 3 is just 1. So in this case, you're just left with x squared minus 3x. And all I did there is I made sure that at the end, I put these two things together. Right? You would never leave an answer as 2 times 3. You'd rather leave it as 6. This is the same kind of thing. All right, so that's number 3. And we're going to use that same skill on number 4. In the denominator, I can't use the GCF method because this has an x, this has a 5 and an x, this has no x. So there's nothing that these things have in common. I can't use the GCF method, but I could double bubble this. And I'm looking for things that add to 5 and multiply to 6, so that's going to be x plus 3 and x plus 2. In our numerator, though, this is just screaming to have the GCF method used because they each have an x term. So the GCF of those two terms is x, and if I divided each of them by x, I would be left with x times x plus 2. Then I can see that there would be some canceling because x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 is just 1, and I'm left with x over x plus 3. All right, so one thing that we didn't talk about in class is that you should be factoring some of these using the GCF method. So be looking out for that when you run into some of these. In this example here, these two things have nothing in common. These three things have nothing in common. So you won't be using the GCF method here, but you might be using it again in the future on maybe 6 and 7. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Again, it's not an easy homework assignment, but I do expect you guys to do your best on it and at least attempt each of these problems. Factor them to the best of your ability. All right? All right, I'll see you guys Monday.